Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of John. We're still looking at John chapter 11, Jesus raising of Lazarus, raising him from the dead. Now we're at verse 25 today in chapter 11. You recall in yesterday's session, Jesus had arrived at Bethany. Martha comes out to meet him and says, "If only you'd been here, our brother would not have died." And Jesus says he will rise again. She says, "Yes, I know he will rise at the last day." You see, it's the hope of the Jewish people. It is the biblical hope that in the end times we will find resurrection. Death will not be the final word for those who are in God. The resurrection at the last day. But Jesus responds by putting that in the present tense. Verse 25. Jesus said to her, to Martha, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die." Do you believe this? Now, we looked at this passage yesterday, but we want to emphasize it a little more today. Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life." He speaks in the present tense. The resurrection is not just at the end of time, but I have introduced that reality into the present moment. I am the resurrection. Now, this is one of the I am statements we find throughout the Gospel of John. We've talked about this before. Jesus making the statement, "I am." You remember too, when they asked him about Abraham, he had been speaking about Abraham as if Jesus knew him, and they said, you're not even 50 years old yet. How can you know Abraham? And Jesus said, "Before Abraham was, I am." Before Abraham was, I am. Now, of course, that's a reference to the name of God. You remember, you go back to the book of Exodus, at Moses at the burning bush, when Moses asked God, "What's your name?" "I am who I am." God said, "I am is my name." So when Jesus said before Abraham was, "I am," he's claiming to be God in the flesh as he is. So those I am statements are very important. But there are other ones also in the Gospel of John. You remember when he was speaking to the Samaritan woman? And she said, when the Messiah comes, he will explain all these things. And Jesus said, "I am he. I am he. I am the Messiah." But again, the emphasis on the I am. He's God. You remember after he fed the multitudes with the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and they began to question him about that, he said, "I am the bread of life. I am the bread of life." And we saw in the last chapter, in chapter 10, he said, "I am the good shepherd." Over and over again, Jesus says, "I am." He is God among us, God in the flesh. He is fully human, but also fully God. And now he says to Martha, "I am the resurrection and the life." Only God has the power of resurrection. So when Jesus says, "I am the resurrection and the life," he's saying, "I am God among you." And the age to come, the age of resurrection, has now invaded the present age in my person, for I am the resurrection. That's why he says, if you believe in me, you'll live, and death cannot claim you. Death cannot defeat my people, for you're in me. You're in the one who is the resurrection and the life. What a powerful statement this is to Martha and to us, as Jesus says, "I am the resurrection and the life." Now he says to Martha in verse 27, "Can you believe this?" And she says, "Yes, Lord, I believe you are the Messiah. I believe you are the Son of God who is to come into the world." She doesn't fully understand all he's saying, but she does believe. "Can you believe this?" Jesus says. "Yes, I believe you're the Messiah. You're the Christ. You're the Son of God." That belief is going to be validated very shortly when he calls Lazarus forth from the grave. Now, of course, after this conversation with Martha, she goes and gets Mary and brings Mary out there. And Mary also says, "Lord, if only you had been here." And then moving ahead to verse 33, when Jesus saw her weeping, that is Mary, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit. And he said, "Where have you laid him? Where did you bury him?" They said, "Come and see, Lord." And Jesus wept. Of course, we all know this is the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. You might wonder, why did Jesus weep? Since he knew he was going to raise Lazarus, since he knew he was the resurrection and the life, he weeps because they're weeping. He feels their pain. Jesus understands the grief we go through at times of loss. He weeps with us. But he also gives us the promise, I am the resurrection and the life. If you're in me, death cannot defeat you. I have the final word, not the grave. I am the resurrection and the life. I hope you join us tomorrow. We've got more to say about this passage when Jesus actually calls forth Lazarus from the tomb. We'll look at that tomorrow in our 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of John.